Welcome back, everybody. Here we're doing a character analysis of a character from House of the Dragon, and today we're giving you 10 reasons you should hate Criston Cole. Currently, spoiler alert, currently the Hand of the King. I got my co-host here, Angie. Say hi to the people, Angie.
Hello.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and start us off. Me and Angie, we each came together. We had a mutual hatred of this character. Love of the show, hatred of the character. And we each came up with 5 reasons we think you should hate this guy. And I'm interested to see if there's any overlap. We haven't shared before time, so we're just going to dive in now. My number 5, or number 1, however you want to count it down, reason you should hate Criston Cole is he stinks. I don't know how many of you know this, but I am a big fan of history. I'm sort of a history buff, history nerd, however you want to describe it. And one thing I do know a decent amount about is medieval combat and medieval weapon systems, which a knight, which is what Criston Cole seems to be inspired by, was a weapon system, truly. And the armor that they wore, which he is depicted as wearing all the time, was hot. It was very well padded. It was heavy. It kept you warm in a cold environment, but if you're on the move a lot and you're fighting and you're just doing things, you're going to sweat, and that sweat's going to soak into the padding, and it's going to stink. And he seems to have his armor on all the time and very rarely take it off. And it's very hard to take off. Armor is difficult to put on and take off. You usually need assistance. That's sort of depicted in season 1 of the show. So I know he's been wearing that stinking armor for weeks, months without washing it. And I know everywhere he goes, he has to just have a rancid odor about him. So that's my number 5 reason you should hate him. Angie, what's yours?
I don't think I have a particular order, but the first reason why I hated him is because he wanted Rhaenyra to give up the throne to go sell oranges and cinnamon with him just because he felt guilty. Like, he tried to make himself feel better. And he was just like, yeah, you should give everything up so I feel better about this affair with you.
That really does. Go ahead.
That's weird.
It is weird. It really does. It's a great point in the series you can point to and you can look at and tell somebody this is a true depiction of his character. He's truly a self-serving character. Every character in the show is, they have a level of realism to them. They're flawed. They have good attributes and bad attributes. Criston Cole, he's an excellent fighter. That's depicted. His skill in combat is referenced early on. It's established very clearly. He's better at hand-to-hand combat than Daemon. Better at melee combat, I should say, than Daemon is. That's showed early on in the tournament. And he is a worthy selection to join the King's Guard, the Crown's Guard, I believe they're called. So it does make sense that, he has positive attributes and people would want to be around him. And clearly, Rhaenyra likes him as a person. She finds him interesting, and as is the Queen Alicent. Spoilers, this is full of spoilers. But it does really show at that moment that, above all else, he wants to believe he is still a good person. I think we all know somebody like that in real life. That's a realistic trait to have. There are people who do a lot of bad things, but they want to feel like, no, I'm justified in it, though. I'm not the bad guy. I think that's actually an increasingly common character trait to be found amongst people in the world. My number 4 reason is a different. We went in very different directions here, which is good. My number 4 reason is his haircut. His haircut in season 2 is atrocious. It is terrible to look at. It's hideous. It's one of the worst haircuts I've ever seen. And there's a lot of costuming and stuff going on here. I don't know who the costuming department person was that decided this character needed a new haircut for the second half of this season. They should be fired. It is the ugliest haircut ever. It makes him hard to look at. It detracts from the show. I hate the way his hair looks.
That was actually on my list. It was like, again, it's like in no particular order, but I also don't like his haircut. And I feel like he's just like, yeah, I'm going to go to war. I need a new haircut. Like, I need a war haircut. And I don't know. I just hate everything about him. So I feel like his haircut is fugly and I don't like it.
Maybe this is an intentional physical characterization moment. Maybe the costuming department, oh man, they're ahead of me on this one. They're 5-headed. They're geniuses with foresight. They recognize that he is devolving as a character. He's getting worse and worse, whereas initially we may have liked him. We're all starting to hate him. And we see now that he's as ugly on the outside as he always was on the inside. And that's what the haircut's for. It's symbolic of his moral degradation as a character. Got it. So I'm glad we both had that one at number 4 on our list. That's really interesting. Like that we shared that. You go ahead and give us your number 3 then. What's another one on your list?
So This is from the first season. Also, when he beat that guy to death, he beat Joffrey to death. It was right after Rhaenyra got married, and so he was just like standing by, watching them dance together, and he looked very angry. And then Jeffrey, he admits to being Rhaenyra's husband's like lover, and he like says that he knows Criston's secret, so he beats him to death. Like he's so self-righteous to the point where he would beat someone and kill them because of something like that. Like he's because of his self-righteousness. Like he doesn't care.
Absolutely, that is another character flaw. It's another trait, another solid reason to dislike him. That was actually probably one of the moments I felt they moved on from too quickly. I feel like that should have had a more lasting impact. We got the time jump sort of right after that. Obviously, they jumped ahead and showed later on Rhaenyra as an adult with her multiple children and her husband. We got that. We had to get that in eventually. But I do wish we could have seen the fallout from that a little more. I do think that's maybe a story thing that I wish they expounded upon at some point. But hey, you're right. That was definitely a dramatic moment that stuck with me as a viewer, and apparently you too. My number
Hmm.
three reason that you should hate Criston Cole actually is sort of tangentially related to that. I would say his self-righteousness is definitely something that I think is tied to this. He has a couple character flaws I think are tied together. Mine is his devolution, I would say, his devolution, however you pronounce that word, from
Hmm.
a somewhat righteous, well-meaning, intending to climb socially ambitious individual, that character trait twisting, whereas now he's still ambitious. Clearly, he became the hand of the king. He wanted to be Aegon's right hand. He tried to offer him advice. He
Hello?
is the hand of the king now. His ambition is twisted though, and sort of rash, short-sighted, rush in. He's an advice giver, but I don't know what the right word for it is. But his ambition has been twisted into a short-sighted power lust, is how I feel it is. He wants to be the guy now. And a lot of it is driven by revenge. Obviously, he has a deep dislike for Nira. He views her as an evil individual. But I think that devolution of his once noble goals and his ignoring of that, his not being able to recognize that he is no longer the white cloak that he was, the noble soldier of the king that he was. So that's my number three reason.
Well, another reason why I hate him is he just always refuses to own up to his mistakes. He doesn't have any accountability. Like for example, that when the whole blood and cheese thing happened, he was busy getting it on with Allison, and he then made it seem like it was Eric's fault that that happened. And again, trying to redeem himself, he basically sent Eric on a crazy path and into his death. So I feel like he just doesn't care. He's very self-serving and has no accountability at all for it. He doesn't even like feel bad about it.
Absolutely. I think that ties into the reason I just gave too about, being short sighted, being rash, wanting to have power and flex it and abuse it. And that's sort of my number two reason is he's sort of becoming an egomaniac. His lust for power has become a need for a power trip. He wants
Yeah.
to feel like the boss. He doesn't care if that hurts other people. He doesn't care if he's a good boss, honestly. He just wants to be in charge now at this point is what it seems like. And that's another way I think all these characters sort of explain in different ways the moral of the story. I think, which is power or a lust for power. It is a corrupting force, and that's a story. That's a common moral we get in a lot of stories. Pretty much, it's one of the universal morals I think of the human canon of literature and film and other media. Is just the idea that people who want to be in charge, who want power, who want to be able to exercise power, they rarely end up being good people. You might start off a good person, you're not going to end one. And he is a clear example of that. And my number one reason that I think you should hate Criston Cole, and we'll see if this lines up with your number one reason, but this is my final reason, my top, my number one, my number five, however you view it. The ultimate reason you should hate Criston Cole is he is a commoner. He did not have to be in this world. He could have been selling oranges and cinnamon. He could have left on his own if he wanted to. And I got King in my YouTube name. I'm a supporter of the nobility, but these games aren't for everybody. Everybody doesn't need to be noble. Some of you are made to scrounge in the dirt and be peasants. And he truly is a peasant, and he belongs there, down in the filth, down in the mud, tilling the fields, hoeing the crops, whatever he has to do. Stay out of noble people's games. He is a commoner with a commoner mindset. He wasn't built for this stage. He's not ready for the big leagues, and he needs to sit back down. And that's my number one reason you should hate him. Angie, what's yours?
I think mine is honestly just the way he talks about women that he's actually been with. Like every other episode, he's just like, yeah, that, you know, like, I don't know if I can say I can say
Don't
these
use it, but
words.
these derogatory
Yeah,
terms
he's
for a
always
woman.
calling her like, yeah, she needs to pay for that. Or like just making these aggressive comments. And on top of that, it's after he's like already moved on. Like he left Rhaenyra, he's with Alicent now, and he's still thinking in the back of his mind about Rhaenyra and hates her because of like basically what she made him. But he on his own continued to do the same thing with Alicent. And so he's just always talking about her. He's obsessed, and I feel like he's not on any moral high ground for him to be able to even do that. But in his mind, he thinks that he is still like the white the white cloak, and he kept to that, even though he hasn't. Rhaenyra has moved on and he hasn't. So he's just a weirdo who seems to like hate girls after he's been with them and they
Wow.
don't do what he says.
I did not think Criston Cole is a misogynist was going to make the list, but apparently that's probably should be the number one reason anybody should hate him. I mean, wow, you really got me
Hmm.
with that one. Maybe because I'm a man and I have just a completely different point of view. I'm looking at, historical examples. I'm cross-referencing thing. I'm looking at the political struggles and the mind games. I didn't even notice that actually. That's wow. I might have to rewatch some of these episodes that didn't really look for that. I mean, I think that, there's a degree of misogyny in all the characters. That's sort of one of the things George R. R. Martin has kind of, I guess, a historical reality that he's transferred over is that misogyny has existed in our world, still exists today. He's gonna take that and apply it to this fantasy world he's created. But I never even noticed how misogynistic his hatred could be and how targeted it may be to women. Most of his interactions have been with women. You're right. I can't think of an example of a male character other than Eric and, like you said, the lover of Rhaenyra's husband, her first husband. I can't think of any examples of characters that he has, male characters that he has had issues with. And those two, the issues he had with them were still related to women. Eric, I guess that was more of a power trip, like I said. But you're right. He does seem to have a special hatred for women, particularly women he can't have. Man, a lot to think about there
Exactly.
for me and for the audience, hopefully. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you have been convinced to our cause of being the anti-Christian Cole Squad. We appreciate you. We appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, and leave a comment below if you can think of any more reasons to hate him, or even a reason to love him. Maybe you can convince us to switch teams. I doubt it. Angie's pretty against him, and so am I. But hey, you can always try. Have a wonderful day.